Thank you for joining us. My name is Ken Beck.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Volunteer Spotlight. I am your host, Evan Starnes, and I'm really excited to be with you guys today. I hope you guys have enjoyed the last few episodes that we've been putting out. I do apologize for the weird delays and kind of shakiness with their release. We've just had a combination of just issues, technical and just other issues, both from just the side of volunteers and just here at Aftersight. We've been busy here doing quite a lot, but that's okay. That being said, today's Volunteer of the Month is fairly recent. He's been with us for a couple of years now, but he's been a top-notch volunteer and has been always had super professional sounding audio quality and has made great strides to ensure that not only his voiceovers sound good, but the production of his content is fantastic. 10 out of 10 volunteer, and really excited to have Ken Beck with us today. How you doing, Ken? And welcome under the Volunteer Spotlight.
Thanks, Evan. Glad to be here. Thank you for all your kind words.
Of course. Well, I always love to kind of start the show off with some fun getting to know you questions, and sometimes it's fun to throw volunteers off because a lot of these questions are kind of like, oh, wait, oh, that's, oh my goodness, I got to think about that real quick. So, first up, the first thing I'd like to know, who is your biggest inspiration in your life? Who is the person that inspires you to do what you do?
The one?
Oh, the one. The inspirational person.
I may not have just one. I mean, there's so many. I read quite a bit, and I love good authors.
Mm-hmm.
Ta-Nehisi Coates is to me very admirable about what he's trying to do. I like classics. I just started reading Don Quixote, and I've never read it before, but it's one of the funniest books I've ever read.
That's awesome.
Otherwise, it's just, you as a kid, you get it pounded into you that, not pounded literally, but you get it repeated to you to always try your best. And so it's probably a lot of influences from that.
No,
but
absolutely.
Individual, I'm not sure.
Well, okay, so side question here, but who is that first author you mentioned,
Ta-Nehisi Coates?
Yes. What did they do?
Well, I actually went to see him here in Denver. And he talks a lot about different, how do we resolve race problems? How do we think about them in a way that will actually take them forward as opposed to being befuddled by them, which is probably our normal condition.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a fantastic speaker, and I don't necessarily agree with every sentence he writes, but it's always insightful, and I always learn something. And if I read it a couple, 3 times, I sure can see what he's talking about.
Yeah, and it sounds like the gist of what he's saying is just generally just good morals and good practices, and also just a good way to maybe progress progress,
Yeah, to progress, to move forward, to move the world forward. And, I don't find him particularly extreme in any particular way. Some do.
That's even better.
But I don't. I just think he kind of coming in on your word of the word good. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about it even more as we go on. But the idea of being a good person, he talks directly to ideas on how our society might think about certain issues and move them forward. That's about as deep as I can get.
Especially things that have just been ingrained in our society for centuries and generations upon generation.
And it is centuries.
That is awesome. Well, that's a great segue into my next question.
Okay.
What's your favorite form of audio content to listen to? If you could listen to one type for the rest of your life, whether that be just audiobooks, podcasts, music, or hey, even something else that I'm not thinking of.
Oh man. If it was only one, it would be music.
Nice.
If it was only one, but if I could have two, I'd put audiobooks right up
right
there.
under that.
In music, I love classical music. In fact, I love all kinds of blues music, rock and roll of all kinds. But what was it, about 4 or 5 months ago, I wandered into the used bookstore over here in Denver, Twist and Shout, and they had this incredible number of classic opera recordings from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, the golden age when the sound was just amazing, for real reasonable prices. And so I started collecting, and it's been so much fun.
I'm beaming right now. If you can't hear it in the audio, especially, I love audio, especially just audio and music produced in that era.
Oh my gosh. And these are LPs. So it's just, what a difference in sound. Oh my gosh.
There's something magical about literally hearing the sound of a needle dragging itself through a groove. Yes. It's analog. It's a piece of vinyl, plastic, even if you will, if you want to say that. And yet it's somehow able to produce art in a beautiful form. Oh,
it is. If I were to get any more excited about it, I'd be considered a maniac or something. It's
Me too.
It's so much fun, and all kinds of music, particularly from that era.
Absolutely.
As soon as the digital era started, you can hear the degradation even on LPs.
Yeah, and the degradation and the improvement that people think it's happening. Actually,
yeah. It's a little bit. I love CDs; they're convenient, but and I've got a lot of them. But yeah, there's no comparison.
Anyway. Same with streaming services.
Oh my, yeah.
Yeah, don't even get me started.
No. No, you're an audio guy, so I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, you trust me that.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, talking of fun things, the last kind of fun getting to know you question here. I used to just focus this on outdoor activities and stuff, but I think it's fun to just open it up more. But what's your favorite kind of I don't like saying extracurricular. It sounds like school, but what's your favorite kind of fun things to do on the side, like hiking, walking, or woodworking, or I don't know. I'm just naming some examples, but what are your favorites?
I do several. I do a little silversmithing, a little bit.
Wow.
Have for a number of years. And it's so relaxing, and to conceive something and then see how close you can get to the conception. You can tell I'm not, I can't say I'm a silversmith. I shoot to.
You aspire to be, yes.
I aspire to, but what fun. And I mean, if you like tools, it's got more tools than you can count. So I love creating in that way. I really enjoy, frankly, I really enjoy the after-site work, and I really enjoy even practicing on what I'd call days off, 6 days off. So I do a lot of reading out loud, and that it comes from just loving to read to my kids or going to their school and read. It's I really enjoy it.
That's
and then
awesome.
bicycling. It's getting out in the world and without a lot of metal around you.
Exactly. It feels great.
Oh, yeah. Just to be outside, and what a part of the world to do that. I mean, this is
a great place to bike. I mean, Denver, Boulder, Louisville, anywhere you go in Colorado, there's a lot of good bike paths. And now, as far as now we kind of touched on this here a couple of minutes ago, but wow, I don't like to word these questions like, what do you like to do outside of volunteering? Because I don't want it to sound like, oh, you must volunteer all the time for AfterSight. You must eat, sleep, and breathe AfterSight, because I don't want people to feel like I'm emphasizing that. But then again, the amount of dedication and practice, and both with audio and reading, though, has really shown in your quality.
Oh, okay.
So let's go ahead and kind of talk about really how you started volunteering in your community, like when you started, and what made you want to actually do work for your community.
Well, I was in a writers group. I don't know if you've heard of Lighthouse Writers. It's really quite a good group, and we had an offshoot group of folks that got together regularly, and I just told them I had some interest in recording audiobooks. and not realizing, frankly, how much skill that takes. And so I completely had underestimated the learning curve. And then I read about Simon Vance. He's a British guy that had read for 8 years in various places, including their Royal National Institute for the Blind. And 8 years before he got picked up to read audiobooks. And he's the one that read The Girl with the Such and Such. I don't know what it was.
I forget what it is. It's on the tip of my tongue, too.
There were 3 of them. And I've got the recordings, and I've listened to parts of them, and they're excellent. But when I saw that he had read and that there was this opportunity, I mentioned that in my writing group, and a friend said that they knew someone who had read for the blind for 10 years, and at a news reading service, and I presume it was AINC, Aftersight, at that time, and so I Googled and found AINC and put in an audition, and Alex got right back to me and said, "Hey, can you start next Tuesday?" And I said, "Sure." And I started from a very unpracticed level, and still have a long ways to go. But it was one of those cases. I probably had a little more confidence in what I was doing than was
than like the average person starting out, you would say.
No, more confidence than was warranted.
Oh, hey, nothing bad, nothing wrong with a little extra confidence.
Yeah, but I learned very quickly that by listening to my own work and being very critical of it, and listening critically, not trying to bring it down, but just listening critically, and
what could I improve on, or
how can you make it better?
Yeah, how can you exactly? That's the best mindset for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, so you've started and have been continuing to read the Pueblo Chieftain on Tuesdays.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what was that like? Just kind of typically, when a volunteer starts out, especially after that audition, it's there's a lot of nerves, and understandably. But how did you first feel when you did like that very first reading and submitted your very first recording?
That's a good that's a good question. I'm getting flashbacks here.
That's what I'm trying to do here. Exactly.
Yeah, it was. I was nervous. It took me. And I'd worked with Audacity before. That might have given me even more nerves, but I'd worked with it before, so I at least knew start, stop, edit things. Mm-hmm. And it still took me over 4 hours to finish it. It was partly nerves, and a lot of it was just, I guess I'd call it eye to mouth coordination. And I wouldn't have ever realized it, but there just seems to be, with practice, the more you read and the more you read out loud, and the more you listen to your own recordings and critically, and that's not all I listen to, but I listen to the finished thing at least twice. I always try to get it to hear how it sounds coming back over the website, but there's some kind of eye-to-mouth coordination that improves just with time, with practice. And that was missing, so that I would, if there was a long word, I had to stop to figure out how to pronounce it. And then afterwards, I don't know if I was waiting for applause or something, but I would always pause, as if I'd gotten it right and should be pat on the back or something. I don't know. But it was just this little tick that I had, I guess, mm-hmm. that after long words, I would look at, figure it out, pause before going on. And it's just little things like that I could hear in my voice, because that pause afterwards didn't do any good. It was a break from the continuity, and more quickly I could read longer words that I wasn't confident that on scanning the first time I would get correct. Like the war in Ukraine. I mean, there are location names, Russian generals, all sorts of things that
pronunciation is key.
I wasn't. Yeah, exactly. Pronunciation is key. So that one, it took a long time, and it was nerve-wracking. It was nerve-wracking, and I still, even before before I push record, I still, get some butterflies, and get it, and then you start, and
you're just in
get into it. So,
like in the zone. That's what.
But yeah, to start with, it was exactly what I wanted to be doing, and because I could tell it was challenging me to a deadline, to a format, to a level of quality, all the things that would make a good reading, that I could see I needed to improve.
Absolutely. And so this actually kind of tackled a couple of different questions here. So no, that's a really good thing. So let's kind of talk about what do you before you begin recording nowadays, what do you typically like to do to prepare for recording?
Do you know? Well, let's talk about the when you mean that, you mean the technology as well as like
the mental, warming up, like the whole mental battle of warming up.
Yeah, and I didn't do that at the beginning, and then I read, I'd read more, and there's any number of courses and resources you can get on. Not the web, is a hit or miss.
Yeah, for sure.
But mostly miss. And there are books. There are books about how to sing, for example, that are so relevant to what we're doing in terms of it's all voice,
mic technique,
and
all that.
Articulation, explaining how the whole physiology of it works.
Mm-hmm.
And so from that, I really understood that it was important to have your whole body into it, to stretch as if you were going to do exercises, which you are, to particularly focus on your neck, any part of your body that's going to be involved in articulating, to make sure that you've run it through some things, even if it's just reading something aloud, something irrelevant to the particular day's reading. So I always read aloud in the morning anyway, so I just do that before I start. But stretching neck muscles to take out a little tension, to acknowledge that, hey, if you're tight in your shoulders, it's going to be tight in your voice. And the other thing is your voice. What I learned was your voice will reflect how you feel. It'll reflect everything about how you feel. And for example, I assume that your listening skills are superior to mine. Mm-hmm. In fact, I know they are. I know the fidelity that you're going to perceive in the world is superior to mine.
Probably right.
So, as is the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just paid a lot of attention to how do I improve my articulation. And it's focusing on things like consonants versus vowels. It's focusing on where does your jaw move, and it's not being obsessive about it. It's taken me 2 years just to get the little progress that I've made. It's just thinking about it and being very conscious about it before you read, and then relaxing and just enjoying the experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's actually kind of a little not an acronym, but like a phrase that when I was interviewing somebody, probably a year ago now, their mindset was stretch, relax, focus, and I feel like that's just generally a good. Maybe we should even have that on like our website as far as recommendations.
it makes a difference.
It does.
For me, at least. At least I enjoy it more, and I feel better about what I was saying. Like before this, I went out for a brief walk, stretched, said a few words.
There you go.
That kind of thing.
Absolutely.
But I found it makes a huge difference, and I enjoy it more.
It really does. And there's kind of the subtle differences in going in with like, if you go in with like a really stressed out mindset, you're like, oh my gosh, I got to get this recorded. It's probably going to come out in your voice. It's like the difference of like, hello everybody, and welcome to the Volunteer Spotlight.
Yeah.
Versus, sounding like we sound right now. Now, speaking of sounding how we sound, let's talk about my favorite thing to talk about on this show, audio gear. So, the fun part. So, can you go ahead and just describe kind of your general recording setup, the way it looks, the type of mic you're using, and are you still using Audacity too as your DAW?
Yeah. No, I'm not. I'm not using Audacity. I'll start with the mic. Maybe I'll just look down the cord and see where it takes us. The mic I'm using right now is a Mojave Audio, their dynamic mic.
Oh, nice.
And I've got that plugged into a Soyuz. I don't even know what to call it. It's an amp. It's an amplifier.
Interface.
The Soyuz is it's an inline amplifier like the Cloud Lifter.
Okay, that makes sense.
Except it adds, it's not transparent, so it has a bit of color to it.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
And I just tried it. I thought, well, at least it doesn't sound bad, and I didn't really know how to evaluate it. But so the signal then that goes into my audio interface then is stronger.
Right. I think the term is a preamp, actually, is what that is.
Yes, you're right.
It's a preamp.
You're right. Yeah. 2 years later, and I don't even know the parts, right? But no, it goes into my audio interface. Yeah, the preamp. But the signal is much higher coming out of a dynamic mic that makes a difference.
Absolutely.
And then I put it into a Symphony desktop, Apogee.
Nice.
Which I haven't even tapped a small fraction of the total of its potential.
Yeah, it's an incredible program. I think it's like a good way to pre-adjust your audio and adjust levels, compression, dynamics.
It's that is the audio interface. Yeah.
Oh yeah, part of it. Yep.
But it's just got things in it that they claim to have, and I don't see anybody else making this claim. They all say industry leading. Apogee comes out and says they have the best analog digital conversion, and I don't have any reason to counter that. I've never had it, but anyway, it goes through this machine that I have no business owning, but I do, and I feel very fortunate that it's there.
That's awesome.
I plug it into a little Mac Mini, still the M1 chip.
That's what I got.
Yep, it really, I'm still amazed that it does what it does. I was using Audacity to start with, and then I moved to Pro Logic, and I found Pro Logic just slightly, I wasn't ready for it. It was a little more powerful and tedious than what I was ready for. And I'd bought a little, what's it called? A fader port. PreSonus fader port.
Oh, nice.
Just gives me the buttons to start, stop, reverse, and I can go faster. And again, for me, this is fun. This is something I really enjoy doing. It's not necessary. You can control it through the screen, and Audacity is good enough.
But it adds more fun to it.
It is just fun. And like I said, I work with it, if not every day of the week, at least 6 out of 7.
Wow. And
I just enjoy the process of getting better at it. So that's what I've got. I put it through, then I use, so with the PreSonus came a free version of whatever their DAW is.
Yeah, I forget what it's called.
Let me look at Studio One.
Oh yeah.
And it's the giveaway version of it, but it's got everything I need to do this. And I'm not mixing music. I'm
doing voiceover stuff.
Just
really
doing voiceover stuff, and it just handles, and it's really easy to use. And some of the workflow is a little, it's easier to accomplish. And then, of course, if you've got the DAW, you've got to play around with plugins and
effects and compressions and reverbs and all the stuff you want to mess with just to have fun.
Just to see what happens. Yeah, so if you see some wild variations in the quality of what I put in, you'll know I must have bought a new plugin. Doesn't know how to use it yet.
Honestly, I haven't heard any, but
okay. Well, that's good. I try not to do, but that's the hardware setup. I built my own little sound booth when my sons went, left me with an empty nest. I took their bunk beds, flipped them up on the end, put them together, and it made the perfect frame.
Wow.
It's because I can stand up in it.
Yeah.
And it made the perfect frame to attach, to build. It made the shape so that I could attach like Pink Panther. There's some fiberboard. I bought the Oralex
panels and stuff.
And again, all not necessary, but I did it really cheaply and with good quality stuff. The Oralex things made the most difference in just reducing the reflective noise.
Absolutely.
And it didn't cost much. Again, you don't have to have it, but in getting the results and when I play around with it every day, it's fun.
It is, and
it's fun to get the quality.
Audiobook quality. I call it audiobook quality because it's typically professional. Like, I actually never heard of that particular brand of panels either. Maybe something to look into for those interested in setting up recording, like a booth. Because I see Oralex. That's what it was. It's
AUREL something.
X probably. Or EX.
Yeah, either X or UX or something. Or
I'm sure if you put that in a Google search bar, you'll find it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, sound panels.
Well, that's awesome. And honestly, this is why I love this question, because I've heard so many cool and unique setups for booths. I mean, anything from like, I had one volunteer that, had an actual like a voiceover sound booth with bricks and panels and all the fancy stuff. Somebody that had one volunteer in particular that recorded in bed, and it sounded pretty good. People that use walk-in closets, and then their all the clothes and shoes and things around them are their noise dampening material, effectively.
That's interesting because what I've just described is I just feel fortunate to have it, but it's not necessary.
But to me, I see it as a really cool, unique setup for. I would have never thought of using bunk beds as a frame for a sound booth. That is just cool.
Well, I stared at them for a long time, wondering, it's nice maple. I don't want to give it, I don't want to lose, what am I going to do if they have kids and want to bring them back? And now it's a voice booth.
There you go.
So
absolutely.
It just looked, I realized I could turn it up on their ends and it would be perfect. So
yeah, you make a box out of it, basically.
Yeah, that's basically it.
Well, that's awesome. Well, now's coming the time for you to basically put me under the volunteer spotlight. And before we wrap up this episode, do you have any questions for me, Evan Starnes, or that you'd like to ask just about Aftersight in general as an organization?
Well, let me tell you an experience that I had, and see if there might be ways to even get more of them. I've only been doing this 2 years, and Jonathan Price has periodic
voiceover boot camps.
Voiceover boot camps, that's what they're called, exactly. And so I signed up, and I think there were four other people, other volunteers. Each one just lovely people. I mean, wow. And at the end, I said something about, wow, this has really been fun. What a pleasure to to meet all of you. You know, I've been doing this 2 years, and it's the first time I'd had the opportunity. I haven't come over to Boulder like I should have. It was the first opportunity I really had, and it was all online. And it was, Jonathan was great in terms of coaching and giving us direction to follow. And I just thought, well, what a pleasure it's been to meet all of you. And they each in turn said, yeah, I was going to say the same thing. And if there's any way to foster that, I mean, those classes, if anybody's listening, I would recommend doing that, because you also get a little one-on-one time afterwards, or Jonathan will take you through a script, and it really makes you aware of the variety of things you can do to just think about, to increase the connection with the listener. And so about Aftersight, I don't know, am I missing opportunities to have that same experience? Again, in connection with this, I would love to come over and just, walk through for a few minutes and shake your hand and meet others that, just to, I realize now that connection is so important, but am I missing other opportunities?
Well, to be honest, I love the feedback on these voiceover boot camps. I mean, since Jonathan's been doing these, I think these have been monumental isn't the right word, but it's the only word I can think of right now for it.
Okay.
But it's been, I will always put in a good word for for Jonathan, because like the stuff that I've seen him do with volunteers and coaching has blown me away. And I'm an audio guy. And I'm a self-taught, like, I just learned what sounds good and how to make things sound good.
Right.
This dude knows how to like work with anybody, regardless of levels of experience and technicality. Yep. And like, we had a volunteer, and this is on YouTube, actually, if you guys want to go check it out on our YouTube channel, volunteer actually reached out for a one-on-one coaching session, and she was like, hey, I was wondering how I could maybe, stop going or clicking, and also how I could make my I don't know, diction, my expression a little more natural sounding. I like that word. Yes. And he did it in a way, because the way I would have seen it is, you just give him the answer. No, the best way to do it is to just move your mouth this way. But
yeah, that's how we self-taught people do it. Exactly.
But what he actually did was he had her read a script, and then he basically like read it with her, and kind of it was almost like a psychological thing. Like he somehow managed to convince her to teach herself to read more naturally. I don't know how to explain it, but it was mind-blowing.
That's something similar to what I experienced in the boot camp. Was not just when he worked with me, but as he worked with each of the other volunteers, you learn by watching, and it's like there were 5 of us, and it was like or 4 or 5 of us, and it was like we got 4 or 5 separate lessons that were equally valuable.
Absolutely, and all in the course of an hour, and you guys had fun.
Yeah, it was exactly, and got to know some of the the faces behind the names, and realized that. I mean, as every other person on that call, I just found admirable in some way.
Absolutely,
it was a pleasure to get to know each one of them.
Absolutely, and you guys are all in the same niche, on the same page, doing helping the same mission.
Exactly,
to put that's
really and keeping that central. I mean, keeping that central.
Absolutely,
is part of the fun.
Now, to answer the other part of your question, as far as, have you been missing out on other things? We haven't actually had these for a while, but every so often we do like to plan these volunteer open houses, and everybody's invited, and we love to serve refreshments. I have in the past attempted to go around and do what I like to call Evan on the go, which is effectively walking around with a field recorder and doing on-the-spot interviews of volunteers, but I kind of found that just takes people out of the whole fun and camaraderie. So I just was like, Evan, just keep it in the spotlight and BLT, buddy, because there's a time and a place for Evan on the go, and it's not at a really loud event. But it's a great way to go and check out our studios, and I can I love to give guided tours and show people our server room and control room, and even just some other stuff that we people have a lot of interest in our Braille embosser that we use. We don't use it a lot, but if we need to send out material in Braille form, it's there. Yeah. And people, it blows my mind because here's my mindset. I was born blind and have always been in this world of different assistive technologies and accommodations and just doing things differently than the average Joe, quote unquote.
Right.
And so what I've realized is stuff that I'm like, oh, I'll just deal with this and everything. This is boring.
Yeah.
Is completely the opposite for other people and totally interesting and enamors these folks.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting though. I'll ask for that when I come for my tour.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we have the Audio Trekkers hike annually too. So
yes,
volunteers out there, if you want.
I know.
Hey, you don't even have to be a guide. You can sign up just to hike with us. But
I'd love to do that now.
If you love camaraderie, no pressure, Ken, no pressure at all.
No, but just being on this this training with Jonathan, I realized it's I want to be more connected.
Absolutely, there's more to it than just reading and recording effectively,
which is enough. But to get to know the people, that's what I look forward to.
It's the fact that it's an opportunity too. So it's a good opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, before we wrap up this episode, I always love to end with some very as cheesy as you want words of just inspiration or encouragement, but to any prospective volunteers or people considering joining AfterSight, do you have any just words of wisdom or encouragement to share with listeners? Like I said, be cheesy. It's okay.
Can I tell a quick story?
Of course you can.
I would just say, keep going. And that's kind of become my mantra through various opportunities and challenges. Just keep going. It's find the joy in it and find the joy. But the first week I did it, took me 4+ hours, and I was worried about the quality, and I really didn't have a sense at that time how to master the sound at all, even close. Had a lot to learn, but got Alex and all of you were all supportive nonetheless. Then the second week, I was still as slow, but I thought, okay, I've really significantly improved. And I used to make it a habit to get up on Wednesday at 7 a.m. when the hour reading of the Pueblo Chieftain comes on. That's my hour. Mm-hmm. And I would listen to it as if I was, hearing it for the first time, and I would just listen to it separately. So I got up on the second Wednesday, and I caught it, and the opening, and I was so new that it was still exciting to hear, thank you for joining us, and in your own voice. And I was sitting there and listening very intensely, and about a half hour, maybe 40 minutes later, I woke up and I realized I'd fallen asleep listening to my own voice.
Nice.
I'd fallen asleep. And when I asked a friend of mine, I said, how can I get better? Well, they suggested that I actually change to reading, they're called ASMR tracks, that help people sleep who actually want to sleep. And they were trying to be helpful. But
yeah.
Nonetheless, if you have experiences like that, or when you hear something that, you wish hadn't have done, that's just part of it. That's part of it. If you can get communicate sincerely and just communicate with interest, nothing, don't try to, like early on, I would modulate my voice a little bit to try to make sure that people could tell when someone was speaking versus when it was text.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't do that anymore. I'll change the cadence a little bit, but and there were other things I did where I would change the pitch, and it started to sound pretty random and silly. If you do it with intention, it creates interest. If it's just like, if I'm moving my voice all around when I listened to myself, then I could tell I had a long ways to go, and still do. I enjoy the aspect of the opportunity to do something like this that's very satisfying, and to get better, and still be appreciated, for it. I just love doing it, and that's what I would say is, you're volunteering, you're doing good work for an organization that does only good work, and probably making a difference that we don't even know. So keep going, and you don't need all the fancy gear. You don't need, you need enough to get the story across, and it's the voice. It's all about the voice. That's all. That's what more than you ask for, but
not at all.
I love doing it.
That was extremely well said. And I think that is a great way to wrap up today's episode.
Alrighty.
Absolutely. Well, Ken, this has been an extreme pleasure getting to interview today, and thank you so much for joining me under the volunteer spotlight.
Evan, it's been my pleasure. I really, really have enjoyed it. Hope it makes a difference.
It makes a difference. Trust me on this. It makes a huge difference. Absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in for another episode of the Volunteer Spotlight. If you guys have any questions or comments or feedback for me or any of our other podcast hosts, or just in general for Aftersight, you know what to do. You can always email feedback@aftersight.org or leave a voicemail at 720-712-8856. Also, early giving for Colorado Gives Day has started, so you can donate and schedule your donation for Colorado Gives Day on December 10th by visiting www.coloradogives.org/organizations/Aftersight. Really happy to be able to have this opportunity, and I'm really excited to see how well we do this year. I'm very ambitious for Colorado Gives Day. One of the most, definitely one of the most intense but fun times around this year. With that being said, I've been your host, Evan Starnes. This is the Volunteer Spotlight, and I'll see you guys next month.